son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your action at Kansas Speedway for the Go Bowling 400. Liehr and I will be there tomorrow night to watch all the racing action and have plenty of money on it at DraftKings. We've had 12 cars fail to make qualifying after failing inspection multiple times. The list includes some prime value guys as well as some studs that you're going to need to play this week. So we're going to do our best to cover all the plays that are out there.
Interesting fact about Kansas, the pole winner has gone 1-1 4 times in 22 total races here. In the last 6 races at Kansas, the winner has come from the starting position of 10th to 20th, 4 out of the last 6 times. 2 of those were from the 4th position and the 6th position, including Kyle Busch's win here last year in 2016. The race segments tomorrow night will be for the Go Bowling 400 will be lap 80 for the first segment, lap 160 for the second segment, and the third segment will take us all the way to lap 267.
Skies should be clear and the temps should be in the low 70s when we go racing under the lights in Kansas at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on Fox Sports 1. Yeah, that's right. I gave you guys Central Time because it's in our home time zone this week, guys. We're going to do things a little bit different coming up, but first we're going to get to everybody's favorite segment, the Burning Rubber. Liehr, do us the honors, buddy.
Burning Rubber, Kansas home style, baby!
I believe you forgot the waving wheat that you did last year, Kansas style. There you go. All right, Liehr. Great job. Who do you have to burn some rubber for us this week, bud?
As you can tell, I'm going to be rolling with number 78, Martin Truex Jr. They've been performing well all year, and they come back to the tracks that they love, which is the 1.5 cookie cutter tracks that we race here at Kansas and all over the country. But Truex has a win in 2017 at a 1.5 mile track this season. Although he didn't qualify on the pole like he did here last year, he did do well in the first practice today, leading the first practice. In this race last year, he absolutely dominated this track during the night race. Even though he finished 14th, he led 172 total laps. He starts tomorrow night in the 3rd position, and his team is primed and set to get their second win of the season. His cost this weekend is $9,700, which is the 5th highest on the board. He was the 3rd fastest in the second practice, and to be honest with you, congratulations to Ryan Blaney for winning the pole, but Blaney was right behind him in both first practice and second practice, and then also winning the pole. So I look for him and Blaney to kind of go maybe a little back and back for the first half of the race, while the rest of the pack tries to figure things out. But with this new aero package and the Goodyear tires that they brought here to Kansas, because they have that inner tire here at Kansas, so if they a tire goes down, they're not going to be down and out. They will still have the ability to get in without a yellow being thrown. So, but Martin absolutely loves these types of tracks. He typically performs very well here and has had 2 races at Kansas where he's led more than 170 laps in a 267 lap race. So stick him in your lineups this week. Unfortunately, he will be having the auto owners on his car this weekend instead of the Bass Pro, which I'm disappointed about. But that aside, he's got the chance to absolutely dominate this race this weekend, my man.
Yeah, dude, I love the Truex play. He's one of a handful of drivers that I have as dominators this week. If you remember correctly, last spring he just straight dominated this race until a pit penalty threw him to the back of the longest line. And he did it in dominating fashion, just like he dominated Charlotte a couple weeks later, like from beginning to end. I love this pick. He's underpriced in my opinion. There's a lot of accessibility to get him and some of the other studs on your lineup. I think it's just the right play. Another one of those guys that I really like this week in my Burning Rubber pick is Kevin Harvick at $10,400. He's significantly more expensive than Truex, but I would look for Harvick to be under-owned this week because of it, and because of the situation that we're going to be talking about in just a little while with Jimmy Johnson and Dale Jr. and some of the other higher-priced guys that you're going to want to squeeze into your lineup. I think that's going to cause a lot of people to get off of Harvick. He has 5 finishes of first or second at this track in his last 7 starts at Kansas Speedway. He starts 8th, but was one of the fastest cars all day, including in qualifying. It was just those cars that were the fastest in rounds 1 and 2 were not the fastest in round 3, as Harvick and he who must not be named fell off the pace just a little bit in the final round of qualifying. I'm not too worried about it. I think Harvick has the chops to get it done here. He has the track history. Now, I know we've been telling you to throw away track history at a lot of places with the new downforce package, but Harvick's just good enough that I don't think you can do that with. I see worst case scenario really a top 5 finish here, and he may end up being a guy that you have to have on your lineup at the end of the day if he dominates a significant chunk of laps like he has at this track often. Liehr, your thoughts?
If we were talking about the same from Harvick from last year in the years prior, I would be right there with you as far as a play this weekend. But, it's 2017. Unfortunately, he's not driving a Chevy anymore. He's driving a Ford, even though I am a Ford guy. But they haven't had the success this year, man. We're going in the 10th race of the season. He's got 0 wins, and this is supposed to be one of the guys that's supposed to be one of the major studs on the Monster Cup circuit. So, I know he's starting 8th, and he has shown a lot of domination here at Kansas. But unfortunately, man, I'm not really feeling it with Kevin Harvick this week. That may come back to haunt me and burn me if he goes out and dominates. But at 10,400, he's the second highest costing driver, rightly so with his history here. But it is a fine line between history and current facts that are going on within the circuit. And Stuart Haas just hasn't been there really this year, and so it's going to be pushing me more towards the JGR guys getting off the Schneid and Penske along with Chip Got Nasty, but I'm just probably not going to play any Harvick at all this weekend, and that may come to haunt me. But it is what it is. You got to take a risk every once in a while.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess I'm not leaning that way. And guys, so basically these are the guys that we wanted to throw out there for Burning Rubber. There's a couple other guys that have dominated this track statistically. That includes Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth, who we'll talk a little bit more coming up in the value segment. Logano's an interesting play, starting second. Liehr, do you have any thoughts on Joey Bag of Donuts before we get into the value?
Yeah, he is one guy that you will have to look out for this weekend. He's got some really sweet stats here at Kansas, and don't be surprised if he gets out there and beats Blaney off the line and goes out and has a dominating performance, because he's won multiple races here at Kansas, and this is one track he likes. And based off of the win that he had a few weeks back and getting penalized for the not meeting the specs, those aren't going to count towards the playoffs. So that they're going to want to get those back. So I look for him to have a real strong race tomorrow night.
Yeah. Now, Blaney was really fast in qualifying and is sitting on the pole. He's underpriced, in my opinion, criminally, as we were talking about, like when they posted pricing at $8K. How much of ownership are you going to have exposure to Blaney this week? I'm going to have a few. I don't know that it'll be a whole lot, but like probably 25% exposure. Where do you think you are on that play?
It's real interesting, man. By the way, congratulations, Ryan Blaney, on your first pole. I've kind of been dancing around it a little bit all year. But with him being part of that Penske team a little bit there with the Wood brothers, but it's good to see them starting off in first on the pole. Historic team there. But as far as Blaney goes, he's been here 4 times. He's got 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s. But I could easily see him just like a little while back where he was out front when he started second and he led over 100 and some laps. And I could see that happening tomorrow night, because in the practices and in qualifying, he was really fast. He was in the top 3. Right there with everybody else. And with him starting on the pole, that's going to give him an advantage, obviously, to get up front and kind of stay up front a little bit until he gets some rubber down on that track. But with the truck guys being there tonight, that's going to help out. And it's really going to be awesome weather this weekend. So no worries about that. But no, I'm definitely going to have some exposure on Ryan Blaney. I would say I may be 50% or higher,
Wow,
honestly.
that's bold, but I understand it.
Yeah,
Especially with
at that price, I mean, it's hard to say no. And I don't know. How do you think the community will be more towards that, or do you think they'll be towards the latter, taking guys like Logano or Truex or Kyle Busch?
every time
I'm not seeing too many of them taking Ricky Stenhouse, but the guy's been on fire lately too, and we've had to eat crow on Ricky Stenhouse lately too.
yeah, and we also haven't talked about Kyle Larson, who had to who wrecked his car, went to a backup car, but still managed to be second fastest in the happy hour practice and qualified well. So the thing is with Kansas, traditionally there is 1 to 2 dominators of this track. You're going to want to be on one to two of those guys, and then you're going to want the value / place differential guys, which is coming up next. I think this is a great transition for it. The first guy, which could also be a dominator, is somebody that I think that DraftKings criminally underpriced that we're going to talk about, is Matt Kenseth at 8,400. His track history here is just too good for that price tag, as well as the fact that he's starting 14th, which gives you a nice place differential bump, and he's going to be overlooked for some of these guys that we're getting ready to talk about. You have any thoughts on Kenseth?
I mean, Kenseth is one of those guys that it really just depends on where he qualified at, and with him starting 14th, it's one of those where he could get up to get into the top 5, but that team just has not had the momentum this season, and he got into the wall earlier today, so he's got a little bit of damage on that quarter panel. Not so much impactful, when you're talking about like last week at Talladega, but this week, that's going to be the part that it's going to be facing the wall when they go into the turns. So he's going to need some downforce on that right quarter panel, and having some damage on it, may hurt him a little bit. So I love the price on him. I just don't, with his recent 2017 data going on, and with the way that he was performing earlier today, I don't know if I can put any stock into him this week, man.
I completely understand. So the other value guys and the place differential guys, this is the predicament that we're put in. So Jimmy Johnson, as I told you earlier, multiple cars did not make it out for qualifying. Jimmy Johnson is starting 29th and is priced at $10,100, but he's worth it as he is the best driver graded out on this track. He has 3 wins, 9 top 5s, and 21 starts. We've got Dale Earnhardt Jr. starting 33rd, Casey Kane starting 31st, excuse me. So basically you have the entire Hendrick stable that didn't make it through inspection other than Chase Elliott. We've also got Eric Jones starting 32nd, and the hometown boy, and it would be nice to see him get a win here, Clint Boyer, who is fast, is starting 30th. I just, like, these plays are going to be plays that you have to pick the right ones and put them in your lineup because of what happened with qualifying. And you're going to want to pair them. Actually, let's talk about the more dominant guys before we get to the super value guys. Liehr, what are your thoughts on those dominant guys that are starting 29th through 32nd? Through 33rd, excuse me.
Well, first of all, it just takes me back to when we had the conversations, about a month ago with Jimmy Johnson and Logano and those guys not getting out, when they started in the final 5. And, it was just kind of no-brainer play. And here again, we're talking about, Cole Witt starting 26th, Jeffrey Earnhardt starting 27th, Derek Cope starting 28th. It's crazy. And you're going to have to be on these guys. Earnhardt, Kane, Johnson, Boyer. But then it's, you have that place differential, and then you're also going to have to throw in the dominators up at the top. So, pretty obvious there, but you're going to have probably a mixture or two of some of the middle tier guys as well, because if you don't, such as like Brad Keselowski starting 17th, that could come back to haunt you. One thing I wanted to mention too, though, is Jimmy Johnson. He was the fastest in 10-lap consecutive averages in happy hours. So, that car's fast. They just didn't get it out in time. So I look for Jimmy Johnson to have a significant amount of fantasy points tomorrow night for sure. But same thing from Dale Earnhardt. I look for them to perform well have a good night as well. If he doesn't get too scared, again, another week goes by, and here we are talking about Dale Earnhardt Jr. and not being able to finish well at a race. It's just starting to become a weekly habit with him, and it's an unfortunate deal. I got my boss man T-shirt on right now, but I just wish that he would go out on a good note. But so far in 2017, it hasn't been so good. But yeah, man, I'm looking at all those guys, especially Clint Boyer. Now that he's in good equipment, he's always had that drive and that passion to win here at Kansas, which is his home track. And now he's got the equipment to do it. Let's just see if he can put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah, it would be really cool to see, since we've got the nice, friendly Clint Boyer back now that he's in decent equipment. Part of the value place differential segment is you're also looking at guys like Landon Castle and Michael McDowell, David Reagan. They're also three guys that didn't qualify and are starting at the back. And unlike the normal guys in that value group that we like to look at, they're not overqualified like the rest of them because of this 11-car conundrum that's at the back of the field. My personal favorite out of those three is probably Reagan, McDowell, then Castle. But Liehr, do you have any differing opinion on that?
As far as myself, I definitely like McDowell, but those guys, they just have not been with it over there at the Levine Family Racing Team. I don't know what it's been in 2017, but they just haven't had that fire, that spark that they had last year towards the end, where he was starting early 30s and getting top 25 finishes, and with him being $5,700, a little bit more than David Reagan, and also Landon Castle $5,200. Landon, I love you, buddy, but it's been a little disappointing lately, especially last week when you couldn't even. You had to go out in the middle of of Talladega, and you're all the way down. He's all the way down to $5,200. Like that's the bottom of the barrel with Earnhardt. I mean, he's $100 more than Jeffrey Earnhardt, and $200 more than Greg Galding. So as far as that goes, I'm right there with you. I like Reagan, McDowell, Castle, basically right how they start.
Yep. And I think that's kind of the risk factor with them as well. Like the further back you go, the more risk. Is there anybody that actually qualified that's a value that you're really on this week, Liehr? I'm not really. I'm using those guys for my value. Anybody in that value range that you're not really scared of where they qualified?
Yeah, I'm actually really on AJ Allmendinger. Dinger's thought of obviously as a road course racer, short track racer guy. But he's honestly had a good start to the 2017 season. He's had some great place differential success here at Kansas. And he's got an average start of 20th with an average finish of 19th. But his cost is what makes him value this week. Just like we talked about last week, how Jamie McMurray and where he was. And by the way, that pick paid off. And I hope you guys played him since we told you to do so, because he was a must-own last week. He didn't quite get the dark horse win that I thought he would get, but he did get second place, by God. So, but back to Dinger, his cost is criminally undervalued at $6,200. I mean, he's stuck between Eric Amarola and Cole Witt. So he starts 21st tomorrow, and I think some people will look at that 21st starting position and get a little hesitant, thinking that he may overqualified. But honestly, that is a good place for him to start. And at that price point, even if he moves up, 5-6 spots, at his salary point and where those points pay out at, his salary will make it definitely worth your value at starting him at 21st. So my advice is definitely on a sleeper pick, play Dinger, play the 47. He's gonna pay off value tomorrow.
Yeah, that's just on the fringe of where I'm with the field. I think he's overqualified. I think he's under.
I mean, and that's the thing is.
Well, dude, he's underpriced, but he's overqualified, and there's a problem this week if you look at track history here and what it takes to win in a DraftKings lineup. You need place differential points and to be a dominator. Any of those guys in the middle aren't going to get it done. So unless you have him moving from 21st to the top 10, then make the play. If you don't, I wouldn't make that play. Otherwise, he can't mathematically score enough points.
I hear you. And I think it's going to be one of those things where he's going to have low ownership percentage because everybody is going to be on those guys that didn't qualify. Everybody's going to stack their lineups with those guys and the one or two dominators that they have up at the top, and those are going to be majority of the lineups this week. I'm telling you, Dinger is going to be a guy that you're going to need in your lineups. Obviously, I know, Poppa, you got your own opinion, but we're all entitled to our own. But in my humble opinion, it's going to take at least one of the drivers from 15 to 25 to stick in your lineup, and for me, it's going to be Dinger as the guy because I just think he's going to bring it this weekend. He's going to prove some people wrong.
I'm going to use your quote, Liehr. I'm going to use your quote back at you from last week. Owner percentages be damned. If the guy scores enough points, you have to have him on your lineup. And the math just says that Dinger's not going to get it done. Now, I for your case, and if anybody that listens to you, I hope I'm wrong, but I hope I'm not wrong because I will have almost no exposure to Dinger. You know what? I'm pretty much, unless something changes, I'm going to have 0 Dinger this week. So if it bites me, it bites me.
You'll have all Harvick, and I'll have all Dinger.
Oh, dude.
If being wrong, I don't want to be right.
I mean, if we want to talk probabilities of Harvick to win the race and or dominate from his position versus Dinger to score the points required.
No, we're not talking heads up here, brother. I'm just talking about what you said versus what I said. There's no way I'm going heads up with Dinger versus Harvick.
Well, right. They're quite a bit different in price as well. On the humorous note, I think it's perfect transition into Poppa this week on Poppa Watch. And this week on Poppa Watch, he who must not be named led me to a nice cash last week and almost had a really, really good, fruitful, multiple $1,000 week in NASCAR, but Sticky Ricky decided to pass him in the last lap. So he who knows somebody that you guys need to be looking out for this week. He possibly could win. He has 4 top 5s here and a win in the last 4 races. He's cheap, way cheaper than he should be at $9,400. And like I said last week, he put up 61 points and helped me make a lot of good money, and it could have been even better money. So keep an eye out for He Who Must Not Be Named, this week's Poppa Watch update. Liehr, do you have anything to add about He Who Must Not Be Named?
Well, now I feel like you're going to stick with that for a long time, but I feel like I can say his name just because from a fantasy perspective.
Dude, no, you hush, sir. You hush. You hush it right now, or you're going to jinx him.
But no, he definitely, man. He's in that M&M's red nose car again this week, like he was last year. By the way, Poppa and I got some great close up with Kyle Busch, like literally driving right next to us while we're on pit road where we weren't supposed to be. Carl Edwards slaps his hand and is like, "Nice race, man." And I'm literally like 2 feet away from him driving into the winner's circle. It's just like, yeah, it was awesome last year. But I definitely see that he could, have one of those performances again this race tomorrow night. And honestly, man, he is way undervalued at $9,400 to what kind of driver he is and potentially could be tomorrow night. I will have exposure on him for sure. And hoping that my exposures will pay off on him. But again, it's going to be one of those, you're going to have to pick 1 or 2 guys, and Kyle Busch is going to be one of my guys that I'm going to go with just because of the fact of his track history here. And they're on the Schneid still. They still do not have a win over there at the 18 team, let alone JGR overall, except for Truex Jr., who is, part of, quote unquote, part of that, but not fully under the umbrella. But I could definitely see Kyle Busch coming out, and he loves it here. He loves Kansas. He obviously, last week, talked about, going to a real man's track, which he was referring to Kansas, because it's, not about, the restrictor plate type racing. It's one of those where here at Kansas, there's going to be multiple grooves, and it's going to be some really good racing tomorrow night, and I can't wait to watch it live. But I will definitely have some exposure on He Who Shall Remain Nameless.
All right, I just have to point out, man, I think it's hilarious. You're like all pro He Who Must Not Be Named because they're on a Schneid, But that's your exact argument for why you don't want any exposure to Kevin Harvick, because they're on a schneid. I'm just trying to figure you out, Liehr. Come on, buddy. Like,
What can I say, brother? I'm complicated. No,
complicated, a conundrum.
It's just that I don't know. You got Harvick starting 8th and Busch starting 5th. Now I know in retrospect that's not a huge difference, but it's just that the 18 team is more on the precipice of breaking into that than the 14 has really shown.
Oh,
You know
fair
what I'm saying?
enough, dude. And great usage of the word precipice. My props. All right, guys, it's the time for the Go Into the Garage segment, everybody's favorite segment where we get to talk trash on the driver. Maybe it's we're talking trash on DraftKings. Maybe it's just track history. Liehr, who are you sending to the garage this week, brother?
I'm going to be talking about the guy that we just talked about, his family member, and going to be going with Kurt Busch. He's starting 6th, man. They have not performed well since winning Daytona. He's got okay history here. He's only got 2 top 5s and 7 top 10s. He's got an average start of 16.5 with an average finish of 16.9. So he's not going to dazzle you here at Kansas Speedway. And I don't know if you remember last year where he was driving and then all of a sudden lost control of it and went through the infield and basically took out the spoiler or the front spoiler and basically ruined his car and had to go to a backup. I could just see it happening again where he's starting up in the 6th spot, and I could just see him wrecking this week. Now, granted, he is definitely value at who he is at 80. What was he? 8,100.
Mm-hmm.
8,200. I'm sorry, but I would much rather have Ryan Blaney than Kurt Busch. Now, if you want to get yourself on an island, go have fun because you're going to be by yourself. But yeah, I'm not playing any Kurt Busch this weekend.
Yeah, he who must not be named's Muggle brother, Kurt Busch. No, guys, I get why Lear's off of him. I think he overqualified. He has decent track history here with a lot of top 10 finishes, but I don't think mathematically that's going to get it done. And that's why I'm on my Going to the Garage pick as well. And you guys know he's one of my favorite drivers just because of his nickname and his awesome helmet. But I have to send Maverick Austin Dillon to the garage. He's starting 11th. And like I said, this isn't an issue of me not liking him or thinking that he could do well. But that's right about where that car is going to finish. It should between 7th and 15th, right? And that's just not enough place differential points with the guys coming from the back. And he's not going to be a dominator. There's just zero chance of that car being a dominator, in my opinion. So I have Austin Dillon Maverick being the Going to the Garage lock pick of the week. And, if you want to send him and Kurt both to the garage and just avoid them both, I don't think it's going to hurt you at all this week. I could be a little wrong, as traditionally when we put people out as going to the garages, they do amazing things this season in the race. But I think we might be okay here this week, barring something super crazy. Liehr, your thoughts on Maverick?
Yeah, I get your perspective on this one, man. I mean, he doesn't have very much experience here at Kansas. I mean, he does have 7 starts, but it's crazy though because when he starts in the teens, which he's doing this weekend, the last 2 races here, he started 17th and finished 6th, started 12th and finished 6th. But then when he started 28th, he finished 22nd, which is a good place differential. But then when he started 25th, he finished 41st, and that was because of a crash. And then before that, 16th, finished 8th. So he's got some decent track history here, but 11th is he's a little too high in the clouds. He needs to, put it back down a gear and go down a couple more 1,000 feet back to reality. But yeah, it's just one of those where this isn't his type of track. He hasn't really come out and showed us that he can really perform well at these 1.5 mile tracks, even though he did finish 6th twice the last 2 times here. I'm right there with you. I'm not really feeling it from Austin Dillon this weekend, but if you want to talk about another Dillon, Ty Dillon, he's starting 22nd. It could be kind of a little sneaky play there. with Ty Dillon. A lot of people will say, well, he's starting way too high, right behind Adrian Allmendinger.
Yes, he's starting way too high as well as Allmendinger.
Yep. Go ahead and say it, but
yeah.
I'm telling you, man, there's something about that kid that people don't get on him, and then he goes and scores, 40, 50 points.
Yeah.
And
well, he does that when he starts 32nd, not when he's starting up that high, bro. And like that's the problem I have with all these. I love where your head's at. The problem is when you break down the math, there's just not enough place differential potential, right? Like Austin Dillon, even if he goes from 11th to his 6th place finish, right? They would get him 42 points, the 5 for place differential, right? Plus the 37, right? Like if my numbers are right there, that's just not enough when you consider what the guys from the back of the field can do. They can literally finish like in the teens, and they're going to outpoint him by 10 to 15 points.
Yeah, we're talking, salary relief here because you're not going to be able to stick Johnson, Kane, Earnhardt, Truex.
Dude, I'm aware, but
on your team.
I'm trying to tell you, you're way better off. Like, dude, I was on Austin Dillon at the beginning of the week, but where he's at, you are way better off mathematically reaching down and taking one of the value guys to save money, like a McDowell, just based off potential, than you are on Austin Dillon, and that's hard for me to say, but that's the reality of qualifying this week.
No, I agree with you. Like I said, I'm not going to be on the Austin Dillon play this weekend. Plus, I remember he rolled in the American Ethanol last year, and one of his pit crew guys got mad at me. So, bad juju there.
All right, man. Now it's the segment of the show where we put together a lineup that'll be in the 12K lug nut this week. Liehr, where do we want to start, buddy?
Honestly, man, I know that we're going to go rounds and rounds and fisticuffs here. So I think that where we need to start at is I want to put Truex on this team, but I don't know if you're going to be all about that.
That's fine. We can put Truex as one of the dominators on this team. I have no problem whatsoever with that. Put him up there.
And I will go ahead and speak on your behalf and put Kyle Busch on there just because it's going to be hard.
No. You said his name. He's going to lose now.
I'm sorry.
You said his name. You jinxed it. I don't want it. I am going to go ahead and insta-play Jimmy on here just because I think you have to with the place differential. Like, the guy's too good, and that's where I'm going to spend some salary. So, we have 75.50 remaining, Liehr. Where do we want to go?
I'm telling you, man. I love him this week. You got to put the dinger on there.
No.
Save some salary.
Veto. Sorry.
Okay, that's your one veto then. We're going to regret that. I'm telling you right now.
Dude, we can, mathematically, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I'd say let's put Clint Boyer on here.
Dude, I love the play. Have absolutely no issues with it. Let's get up to Boyer. That's going to decrease salary a little bit. I don't have a problem with that.
Costs a lot of money this week.
Yep. Takes us down to $7,200 per driver remaining. See, before you overqualified, I would just be like, oh, let's go ahead and play the Roush Fenway boys, both of them. But, I do like Bain where he's starting at somebody we didn't talk about, as a place differential guy. If you're wanting somebody in the 20s range, the teens to 20s range, at least that car we know is a top 10 car. Danica, I wouldn't roster her, but I have to point out she is in one of the sweetest rides I've ever seen. That Wonder Woman car is awesome. It is just tight. It is a shame that she isn't Wonder Woman behind the wheel and has a chance at the race to win. That would be really cool. But unless something screwy happens, I don't see her doing anything. And she was complaining about how loose the track was, so I wouldn't roster her. Like I said, not fan of Ty Dillon this week. Man. Because it was overqualifying. I'm just going to go ahead and plug McDowell on the team, dude. I think that's where I want to go.
Michael McDowell?
Yeah. Since he failed to make it out.
I like it.
All right, man. That bumps back to $79.50 for the last two spots. So you can either be nice and give me a value pick so I can spend some money, or you can spend some money and then I'm left with another value play. I mean, dude, okay, Liehr, I'll make you a deal. if you really want your dinger to play here, I'll give it to you to give me some salary to play around with.
I'm telling you, man, it's going to pay off.
All right. I'm still morally opposed to it, guys. And like I said, other than this lineup, I don't think I will have any AJ Allmendinger, but I will put it on to make the Liehr happy. He deserves it. All right, that gives $9,700 remaining, and that's right in the range where you could buy Logano, He Who Must Not Be Named, Kenseth, like any of those guys. And I'm not sure the right play here is if we have Truex dominating this race. I'm not sure the right play isn't leaving money on the board and going junior and then maybe upgrading McDowell. But I kind of want, now that we've gotten away from you jinxing him, I want to put him back on.
Of course.
I think it's just the right play.
Yeah.
I think those two guys are going to split domination of this track this weekend, and Jimmy's just going to come up from the back. That lineup is solid, and I really like it. It's Truex, Johnson, Boyer, McDowell, the Dinger, and Busch, other than the Dinger thing, but that's Lear's thing. Well, I'll give it to him this week. Guys,
you
thanks.
Watch, son. You watch
all
what
right,
happens.
all right. Well, I will be next to you, so if that happens or if Harvick happens, I will be celebrating right next to you, sir.
Yeah, we're putting a beer on that one, buddy.
Deal. All right, man. So say your goodbyes for this week, man. Let's get out of here.
All right, guys. First and foremost, I do want to give you a dial-up update. Unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to join us the last couple of weeks. He is still part of the show. Unfortunately, his radiator went out on his car and having some issues putting that in. So with us going to the track tomorrow, unfortunately, we couldn't get it done yesterday. So, but want to thank you guys for watching each and every week. Me and the lady got a chance to go out to the track last night and do a meet and greet with Brad Keselowski. Super nice guy, definitely class act. So got a couple things signed here, but we are going to go ahead and pull in the Brad Keselowski hat. I'm going to give that away this week. So you must like and comment on the show, and we will give that hat away to one lucky fan that comments on the show. But definitely signed by the Brad Keselowski. And he also might be a play this weekend, too, starting in that 17th position. Mm-hmm. Watch out there. We didn't really talk about him too much. They're off to an awesome season, too. So make sure you plug him into some lineups. But appreciate you guys watching every week. And looking forward to tomorrow night, brother.
Yeah. Let's get it done. Let's win some money while we're at the races. That'll make the race that much better. Exactly. Guys, thanks as always for tuning in. It's our pleasure to bring you our NASCAR picks and to talk NASCAR with you. Remember to like and comment to be eligible to win that Brad Keselowski autographed hat. And we'll announce the winner next week and get that out to you guys. Until then, guys, let's comment, like, share. We'll try to do our best, even though we'll be trackside, to comment with you guys. And have a great one. Let's win some money.
Sweet tie, Poppa.
Oh, thanks, man. Later, y'all.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the race.